Hey everybody, it's nutritionist Amy Berger from toitnutrition.com bringing you another installment of Doing Keto Without the Crazy. As always, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing. Today is, Wednesday, June 19th. This is my recording day, and we are now over 8,000 subscribers to the channel, so thank you very much. I really hope this stuff is helpful. Before we get into business, I'm going to do like I did last time. I'm going to kind of tell you about some upcoming events where you can meet me in person, and not just me, but other, keto, low carb people, personalities, whatever you want to call them. The first one is the weekend of July 19th in New London, Connecticut. That's Keto Fest. I will have links to all of this in the notes for this video. So Keto Fest, New London, Connecticut, weekend of July 19th. The weekend after that, on Saturday, July 27th, I will be in Terre Haute, Indiana with the Adapt Your Life company, and Eric Westman will be there, and a couple of other people will be speaking too, I think. Then, let's see, in August 17th, the Great Canadian Keto Conference, I think is what it's called, will be in Toronto. I'll be there. A whole bunch of other keto people will be there, some from the US, some from Canada. And let's see, September 21st, also a Saturday, I will be in Canada again, twice to Canada, eh? Saturday the 21st of September. That I think is going to be somewhere in Ottawa, but I'm not sure where, so stay tuned. I don't have a link for that yet, but I will soon. So a bunch of upcoming places where you can meet me. The second order of business to get into before we get into the real business is I want to let you know about something that I have for sale on my website right now, toitnutrition.com. If you go to that website, there's a tab that says page 4 fat loss diet or page 4 keto fat loss, something like that. That is the famous Dr. Westman page 4 diet. I'm not going to talk too much about it. You can go there, see what it's all about. Basically, if you are having a hard time losing fat on keto, and assuming you have a significant amount of fat to lose, we're not just talking about the last 5 to 6 vanity pounds. If you have a substantial amount that you're looking to lose and it's either happening really, really slowly or it's not happening at all, check out the page 4 fat loss tab, because that is the simplest, most uncomplicated, most straightforward way to do keto. It's very, very strict. Dr. Westman starts his patients out at 20 grams total or fewer per day, not 20 net. 20 total grams is really low, because you know what? Broccoli adds up, and almonds add up, and heavy cream adds up when you're counting total carbs. So anyway, the reason it is so effective is because it's so strict. And I did a video not long ago that was called Stop Kidding Yourself on Keto. A lot of us, we have that carb creep. We're eating a little more carbohydrate than we realize, and many of us, myself included, really overdo the fat. You'll be very surprised to see not so much what is allowed on page 4, but what's not permitted on page 4. Fat is not unlimited. It's actually fairly limited. I should say the added fats and oils, the butter, the cream, the mayonnaise, the cheese, the oils. It's limited. You can kind of enjoy most of the fat on meats, on whole foods, but adding the extra fat is really kind of a roadblock to some people losing fat. Not everybody. Anyway, that's enough about that. If you're having a really hard time losing fat, check out that page 4. It is $9.99. And I want to be clear right here. I don't want to mislead anybody. It's literally 1 page of paper. That's why it's called page 4. It's the 4th page of the handout he uses in his clinic. So, but this is where the food list is and the instructions on how to follow the diet. So you're paying basically $10 US for 1 sheet of paper, but many of you watching have probably shelled out far more money for far less, for apps, for trackers, for programs, for books that have not helped you. So it's, in my opinion, a small price to pay for something that will work. Now, you have to follow it, you have to stick to it, but if you do that, it will work. Also, full disclosure, I am an affiliate. I receive $1 or maybe $1.50 from that purchase. Buy it or don't buy it, I just wanted to let you know it's available now. You can search online for page 4, Westman page 4. Various things will come up on Pinterest, on wherever else. I cannot guarantee that it's the real page 4 sanctioned, approved by Dr. Westman himself unless you buy it from that site, or unless Dr. Westman hands it to you in person at an event, which sometimes he does. So come to those events. Come see us in Terre Haute, Indiana. Anyway, so that's enough about that. Moving on. Okay. Willpower and discipline. There's a lot of different things we could say about willpower and discipline. I'm probably going to do another video about the way heavy, overweight people are treated in terms of, well, you just need to eat less and move more. You know, if you had more willpower, you wouldn't eat so much junk. And if you had more discipline, you'd go to the gym. That, first of all, is crap. But that's kind of a different perspective on willpower and discipline than the one I'm going to talk about today. So for today, it's really about where does a ketogenic diet come in with regard to willpower and discipline? How do willpower and discipline figure into adhering long-term to a ketogenic diet? I'm going to start off by telling you about a friend of mine. She's actually very well known in the keto world. She's written a couple of cookbooks, but I'm not going to give you her name because I don't know if she would want me telling you this about her, although she's probably said this on numerous videos herself. Anyway, she was obese for most of her life, even as a child. You know, she was heavy her whole life and struggled like crazy. I think she even had bariatric surgery and it wasn't that successful. It still really didn't get a whole lot of weight off. And after she discovered keto, she said the magic of keto was that within a day or two, she said, for the first time in my life, I wasn't hungry. Now, some of you out there, maybe many of you, can probably relate to that, right? Many of us thought about food all day long. You were eating breakfast and you were already thinking, I can't wait till lunch, or what am I going to have for lunch? You're eating lunch and you're already planning dinner. That's normal, I think, when you're on that blood sugar roller coaster, right? Why wouldn't you constantly be thinking about food? When I was in high school, when I was bored, I think I've mentioned this in other videos, but when I was bored during class, I would doodle in my notebook, and in the margin, I would make lists of food I would eat if I was at the grocery store, or if, especially, I worked at a Chinese takeout restaurant in Staten Island, New York during high school. They always had like a Caucasian kid to pick up the phone because the people I worked for spoke perfect English, but they had very, very thick accents. So they always had like an American kid to answer the phone, help pack the orders, pack the rice. So that's what I did in high school. And the food was so good at this restaurant, but I would make lists of Chinese food that I would order because I was so hungry and I was so bored. Can you hear that siren? I don't know if the video is picking up the siren. I'm recording during the daytime. I normally record at like 11 o'clock at night when it's quiet outside. It's 12:13 p.m. right now, middle of the day, so we're gonna have some outside noise. Anyway, I wasn't hungry all the time, but I often thought about food. I fantasized about food. I just loved thinking about food. And you know, so many of us can relate to that. Our whole life is food, right? And the thought of going without some of our favorite foods, or of going on a restrictive diet where you're going to give up like 90% of what constitutes your normal daily diet, that's a terrifying thought. Like, I'll never be able to stick to that. Oh, I can't give that. Oh my God, my fruit. What am I going to do without my potatoes, my rice? And isn't it interesting how that kind of goes away on keto, right? And I haven't really, my notes aren't that detailed, so this video is going to be all over the place, but let's see where I can. So that's what a lot of us, or a lot of people, associate with dieting, right? Or with trying to lose weight, trying to lose fat, is that you have to be deprived, you have to restrict, you're going to be hungry all the time, right? Because that's what we're used to. We're used to having to force ourselves to go hungry, to force ourselves to just feel that rumbling in our stomach and go about our day and ignore it, right? Ignore this fundamental biological drive that our body is having to keep us alive. And, you know, we had these frankly bullshit, nonsense pieces of advice about how to resist hunger or make it go away. Instead of being told to like put nourishing, wholesome, satiating, satisfying foods into the biological machine that is our body, we were told to what? Go for a walk. Distract yourself. Brush your teeth. Oh, you won't want to eat food with a nice clean mouth. You want to bet? You know how many times that hasn't worked for me? Drink water. Fill up on water. Yeah, because you can fool your brain and you can fool your stomach with water. No, you can't. What else? Knit. Do something with your hands. Like do a crochet project. Keep your hands busy so you won't want to snack. I mean, all of this total nonsense garbage advice that was intended to help us stick to a plan that was doomed to fail from the start, right? So instead of doing that, instead of being hungry all day and trying to trick your body and find ways to power through that hunger, and instead of ignoring those biological and physiological drives, you could consume food in reasonable quantities for an adult. No discipline required, no willpower required, because you can actually eat food. So when we talk about a conventional diet, like a low-calorie diet, maybe even a low-fat diet, some type of restrictive diet, we'll talk about keto in a minute because keto is restrictive, but talking mainly about a low-calorie diet, some diet that forces you to ignore hunger all day. I don't know that I necessarily agree with this, but it sounds good. Some people say that willpower is a finite resource, right? When you spend all day resisting things, like at work, there was a tray of muffins and I didn't have the muffin, and somebody was retiring and they had a cake and I didn't have the cake, and I went out to lunch with coworkers and I really wanted the fettuccine alfredo and instead I got the salad with the fat-free dressing. Whatever it is, the more you say no to during the day, you resist. Come 11 o'clock at night, that's when the wheels fall off the wagon and you dive headfirst into whatever. The potato chips, the biscuits, the crisps, depending on where you're watching this from, the cereal, the ice cream, the granola bars, whatever's handy. And usually whatever was handy was sugary, starchy, and fatty, probably combined to some extent, right? And let's see. The thing is, too, though, it's not just a matter of running out of willpower or using up all your willpower so that by the end of the day there's nothing left and you're going to eat whatever. I think, for me, thinking back to those days when I ate whatever I wanted, before I was on a low-carb diet, and I would have a bagel for breakfast, and I would have pasta for lunch, and I would have a cookie as a treat, and I would have whatever I wanted during the day, it didn't make me want it any less at night. It wasn't like, well, I had that cookie, with lunch. I guess I don't want any cake for dessert after dinner. No, I still wanted it just as badly as I would have if I hadn't had it. So there's really more to this. Like, it's not a matter of getting it out of your system, right? Like, well, if you're craving that, just have it. Just have the pie because then it'll be out of your system. No, you have the pie and then you probably want more pie and more pie, right? So where does keto come into all this? It's very, very hard for someone who's never experienced what I'm about to say to understand it. On a ketogenic diet, a very strict ketogenic diet, when you eliminate the vast majority of sugar and starch from your diet, by about the second or third day, which varies, maybe for some people it's more, usually by about that 48, 72 hour mark, hunger goes away. You're just not hungry. Part of that is that the insulin has come way down, and as insulin comes down, what goes up? Fat burning. Fat release from your adipose tissue, from your fat cells. Insulin is like a security guard that stands outside your fat cells and doesn't let that fat out, right? Everybody thinks of insulin as a blood sugar hormone, and actually, lowering blood sugar is like the least impressive, least important, least impactful thing insulin does. One of the primary things insulin does is stop the release of stored fuel in the form of fat. So you get the insulin down, guess what? Now all that fat can come out. Now when the fat comes out, the reason you're not hungry is because you're already eating. Internally, on the cellular level, you're eating your stored fat. So you don't have to have a whole lot coming in from the outside because your cells, your tissues are already being fueled, already being nourished. Now, there is some nuance to this. I'll get to it in a minute. But Let's go back to the notes before I forget anything. Now, so Dr. Westman, I know I talk about him a lot, but I talk about him a lot because he's been treating patients with keto for 2 decades, right? Almost longer than anyone else, except there's a handful of other doctors that have been doing this as long as he has. When he has a patient that's coming back for a follow-up visit, you know what he asks them? He doesn't say, have you been cheating on the diet, Mrs. Smith? Have you been eating carbs, Mr. Jones? The question he asks the follow-up patients is, how's your hunger? Are you hungry? Because he knows if they say, yeah, doc, I'm hungry all the time, I'm starving all the time, that's how he knows they're eating too many carbs. Because if you're not eating too many carbs for your own physiology, you're not that hungry. Now, here's the thing, though. I wrote a blog post. I'm going to have links to a lot of blog posts in the notes because there's a lot of relevant ones here. I did a blog post on hunger on keto because you'll hear people say, I'm never hungry. I'm not hungry. That's not really true, right? Even on keto, even when you're a fat-burning beast, as Mark Sisson would call it, you do get hungry. It's not like you're never, ever hungry and you could go 8 months without hunger. It's that your hunger is normalized. You get hungry, you don't get hangry, right? That combination of hungry and angry, that hypoglycemic, shaky, God, give me some damn food now. You never really get like that. You get a comfortable sort of hunger pang, like, I'm kind of hungry, I could go for some food. And usually when you feel that hunger pang, you could wait an hour or 2 if you had to. It's like, I'm hungry, but I can wait, no big deal. It's not that urgent, immediate, desperate need for food like it was on your high carb days on that blood sugar roller coaster, right? So it's not that you're never hungry, but your hunger is controllable, it's not uncomfortable, it's just hunger. Let's see, what else? Okay, let's talk a little more about the willpower and how keto fits into all this. When I used to work an office job doing unrelated work to nutrition, I worked in a normal office where there was a lot of food, it was a huge office. So like every 3rd day, somebody was new or somebody was retiring. It was somebody's birthday, somebody's whatever, some sort of celebration. There was constantly food in that office. And even when it wasn't any particular special day, sometimes somebody would just bring in a box of donuts or bring in whatever. And, I've been very clear on my video channel that I'm not a purist, I'm not a zealot. Every now and then I do have sugar. Every now and then I have bread, whatever. So I'm not 100% super strict keto all the time, but for the most part, there's a lot of stuff I just don't eat. So there would be all this stuff, all these sweets, all these starches, and I would just kind of walk by. I would, oh wow, like that's pretty, oh that looks so good, but I just keep walking, no big deal. And people would say things like, oh Amy, you have so much willpower, like oh my gosh, I can't stay away. And I would think, I didn't really ever say this to anyone, but I'm like, I don't have willpower. I don't really have willpower at all. The thing is, you don't need willpower to resist a craving when the craving doesn't exist, right? If I didn't have to resist, I didn't need willpower to resist cookies and cupcakes and banana bread because I didn't want cookies and cupcakes and banana bread, right? Willpower to me, implies stopping yourself from doing something that you really want to do. It's that control, I guess it's discipline too. It's that sense of controlling yourself when there's something that you want to do and you're not doing it. And that's just not, I don't have that on keto. I don't want the stuff. And it's not that I don't like that stuff. It's not that I don't think it's delicious. I remember what cupcakes taste like. I remember what brownies and cookies taste like. They're friggin' delicious, but I just don't want them anymore, right? I don't need willpower to walk past a smoker and not ask to bum a cigarette. I don't smoke, so guess what? Smoking holds no interest for me. I don't need willpower not to smoke. I don't need willpower not to do whatever. I don't know what, smoke some other substance, you don't have to have willpower to resist a craving when the craving isn't there, right? That's one of the major things that keto does. And again, it's really hard for people that have never experienced it to process that, to get that that's a real thing that happens. When you're still on that blood sugar roller coaster and you are immersed in a constant sea of sugar and starch, that's what your body needs. Your body's crying out for it all day long. We all know this, but once you're off of that crazy amusement park ride and everything is kind of even, you just don't need the stuff. And it does go away. It really does. And it's so hard to understand that if you haven't been through it. And so that's the main thing I wanted to say. Now, here's the other thing, though. Let me check before I forget. The other thing of this is this always true? Does Amy Berger never, ever look at that cupcake and say, oh my God, give me that cupcake right now? Does Amy Berger never look at a loaf of warm, crusty, fresh from the oven French bread and say, I'll take 3 pieces of that, please? Of course that happens. I'm not a saint. And maybe your preferred keto guru or whatever is, I'm not a saint. I don't want to be a saint. And why does that happen? Why do every now and then I want that stuff? I don't know. I haven't really tracked it enough to see. Maybe it's tied to my menstrual cycle. Maybe it's tied to stress. I think sometimes I just get a craving for a thing. It's usually when I see it, right? It's not usually at home because I don't have that stuff, out of sight, out of mind for the most part. But it's very rare. It's rare that I want that stuff, but it's not never. And let's see, what else was I going to say about this? So how do I get back on track and kind of get more clarity here? It's not that keto is magical, right? For the most part, it makes all those cravings go away and you have genuine true hunger. But I have another friend who's very, very well known in the keto world, has a huge following. Again, I won't say who she is, and I love her. I mean, she's like a personal friend, a dear friend. She often says in her videos, eat when you're hungry and stop when you're full. Well, great. Why didn't I think of that? When you figure out how to make that happen, you tell me the secret. Eat when I'm hungry? What a novel concept. Because even I, being a keto nutritionist, having eaten a low-carb diet for over 15 years, do I eat when I'm not hungry? You bet I do. Am I ashamed to admit that? Not really. I think it makes me human. I think it makes me human with a brain that eats food for reasons totally unrelated to actual physiological hunger. And stop when I'm full or stop when I'm satisfied? No. I'm going to quote a comedian here, and he's a bit controversial. He ran into some trouble with the Me Too movement a while back, so I won't say his name, but he said something like, the meal isn't over when I'm full. The meal isn't over until I hate myself. And I kind of want to laugh at that, but it's equally humorous and tragic, right? It's really sad. I can relate to it. Many of you can probably relate to it. The lucky ones among you probably can't. But, many of us don't know how to stop eating unless there's physical pain. Like we eat to the point of being so stuffed that if we take one more bite, we're going to explode, or we're just already so full that I can't fit another bite. And when you figure out the answer to that, please put that in a pill so people can buy it and take it. Now, again, for the most part, on keto, I think keto does regulate appetite really well, but there's a lot of people, me included, dear viewers, dear followers, who eat too much for reasons that I don't know why. And I mentioned this in a previous video that I often will push my eating out as far as I can into the day. I let my hunger go on until I'm so hungry that it's like, okay, now it's time for some food. I don't eat at the first little hunger pang. I'm just a little peckish. I'll pick and snack. No, I try to wait until the hunger is really strong. And then I have a substantial meal. I might have a little snack, some nuts, some cheese, some pepperoni or something like before, the meal during that early part of the day, but it's a very small amount of food. And the reason I push it out so long is because I know that I like to eat very large meals. I like to be full, very full, when I'm done with my meal. And so if that's going to happen, I can't do that 3 times a day. If I know that I tend to overeat, however you want to define that, then it behooves me to push it out as late as I can and have just 1 meal or 2 meals if they're going to be very large meals. So keto doesn't, correct a lot of the stuff that we do for reasons other than actual hunger. It helps. Don't get me wrong. It helps a lot. And for some people, it does fix everything. For some people, it is a total magic bullet. They go keto. Everything's perfect. They just scoot along in life. Food is never a problem ever again. Cool. Awesome. If that doesn't describe you, welcome to my circle, welcome to my community, welcome to my world. It doesn't describe me either. Now, I have to say, even though I overeat, because I'm overeating on keto foods, I think it's far less damaging, and based on recent blood work, not really impacting my metabolic health at all. My numbers were, I was actually pleasantly surprised at how good they were. I was not expecting them to be. And my weight, I think I'm losing weight, actually, or I should say losing fat. Maybe I am losing weight, but I think that I'm getting smaller because of the way that I've constructed that. Like I don't eat all day long. If I'm going to eat, I'll eat a keto meal. I'll eat a big honkin' keto meal, but I'll only do it once or twice a day. And so I guess I want to say that for the most part, that willpower and stuff about resisting food or doing certain things is not required on keto because, like I said, most people just don't crave that stuff anymore. I don't want spaghetti. I don't need willpower to stay away from pasta because I don't want pasta. And again, it's not that I don't like it, I just don't want it. When I'm let's say you go to a supermarket and you pass through, at a lot of supermarkets, the first place you pass through is the produce, right? Because they want that to be the first thing you see when you walk in the store. It's colorful, it's bright, it's pretty. Usually in most supermarkets in the States anyway, in the produce section, it's like vegetables and fruit, but it's also flowers. It's their floral section too, right? And so I look at the flowers and it's like, oh, those are so beautiful, they're so pretty, but I don't want to eat them. They're not food. They're not edible. And it's the same thing. Like I could walk up whatever aisle, some aisle that has weird stuff that I might be walking down that aisle to get to the back where there's meat and seafood and eggs and poultry. And I'm walking down this aisle, not like with blinders on. I'm not even looking because this stuff, the graham crackers and the cookies and the whatever, it's not food to me anymore. I don't look at it as something that I would chew and swallow and put in my body. And again, that doesn't happen all the time. I'm not, you will never see me on Twitter be one of these people like, oh, that stuff is poison, that's garbage. I would never ever desecrate the temple that is my body with that piece of whatever, that scone, that chocolate chip muffin. Every now and then, I do desecrate the temple that is my body with some piece of crappy sugar. Sue me, whatever. So it doesn't, keto makes that much, much better. It doesn't always make it go away. And I was trying to make another point, but I forgot what that was. Clearly not enough coffee yet today. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, when I go to a restaurant, I have a disease where it's really, really hard for me to make choices. The more choices I have, the harder it is to make a decision. So when I go to a restaurant that has a 20-page menu, it's totally overwhelming. For me, keto helps in that regard because like 80% of the menu is off limits, right? I'm not going to have the rice and the pasta and the beans and the potatoes and the noodle dishes. And for the most part, I don't even look at them. Like, oh, there's a linguine with clam sauce. That's nice. Let's, where's the meat? Oh, there's a potato croquette. Okay, where's whatever else? It doesn't faze me. There's no hardship involved. There's no behavioral control involved because it's like been lifted. It's like it's just been removed from my, I don't know what, from my psyche. I don't have to fight it. It's not an enemy to fight because it's just gone. It's not there anymore. Most of the time, right? Most of the time. Maybe that's all I had to say. I thought there was more. I think the more I want to say is about the willpower and discipline with regard to like exercise, hitting the gym, because that's a different kind of discipline and all that. But I'm going to stall for a second to make sure there's nothing I forgot. While I'm stalling, let me tell you that, as always, you can support me on Patreon if you like my content, patreon.com/2itnutrition. Or if you don't like to use Patreon, you can send me a one-time or recurring contribution on PayPal, paypal.com. Send it to my email address, which is 2itnutrition@gmail.com, TUIT nutrition@gmail.com. Check out the page 4 diet on my website. And I guess I'm going to do more videos for sure on the compulsive eating, compulsive overeating, binge eating, food addiction. But I just can't, stress enough. If you're struggling with keto, that's okay. Keep struggling, keep at it, keep plugging away. It'll click someday. And even if it doesn't fully, mostly doing keto, getting most sugar and starch out of your diet is still going to be way better than not getting most sugar and starch out of your diet. Even if you're not super strict keto, even if you're not the poster child for keto, it's okay. Move in the direction, however slowly you're moving, like forward momentum is forward momentum. And you're just so not alone. If you still struggle, if you look at people online like, wow, that person hasn't had ice cream in 17 years. Wow, that person just has a hard line in the sand. They never, ever, ever, ever eat anything with refined sugar. Good for them. Good for them. And that doesn't make the rest of us bad people if we don't have that line in the sand. I don't think that line in the sand is necessary for most people, frankly, but now I'm starting to ramble, so welcome to the club. Like I said in a previous video, more kindness, more compassion, more empathy, less judging, less shaming. I will see you next time. Website 2itnutrition.com. Check out my blog. I love writing more than I like videos, but I'm happy to do these videos to reach more people. See you next time. Bye-bye.